Deep in the woods, a woman's body was found, wrapped in a plastic bag, covered with soil and bushes. Her identity was unknown. The chief inspector had thousands of questions running through his mind. Some would be answered by the criminal lab, some by forensic medicine. Chief Inspector George would complete the rest of the puzzle. When he arrived at the scene, no identification documents were found. The body was wrapped in a plastic bag. The back of the neck had been struck with a hard object. They turned the body over. The forensic doctor said it was possible she had been strangled. A plastic bag had been placed over her head, and whether she was alive or dead would be determined by the autopsy report. The duct tape found was placed in an evidence bag. There was no clear information yet on how many days she had been there. They estimated it to be at least 48 hours. The forensic doctor took samples from her nose, ears, and other injured areas with tweezers and placed them in a jar to send to the entomologist. The entomologist, or insect scientist, would examine the living organisms taken from inside and around the wound on the victim's neck, from her nose and mouth, and calculate the time elapsed since death. The chief inspector saw the witnesses. They were together. He was angry. He had told them many times before that they should keep the witnesses separate. They collected all the fingerprints, footprints, tire tracks, whatever they could find. She had a tattoo under her chest. This would help them identify her. This would be the first thing they would ask the forensic doctor. The chief inspector was certain that the woman had been killed elsewhere and dumped here. He had to find evidence related to the crime scene. A tiny piece of soil, a leaf stuck to her hair, necklace, skirt, or shoes. That's why all the details were meticulously examined. A detailed investigation began with the discovery of the body. Clues that would reveal the killer were meticulously searched for. No fingerprints were found on the bag and duct tape. Not a single strand of hair, fiber, or fabric was found stuck. How was she killed? What was used to hit her on the head? Did she suffocate after the blow to the head? Or was she still breathing when the plastic bag was placed over his head? The autopsy would provide the answers to all these questions. When George and Jacob arrived at the morgue, they realized their job wouldn't be easy. According to the forensic doctor, the victim weighed 67 kilos, was 55 centimeters tall, had white skin, black hair, and, based on bone and tooth structure, was around 29 to 30 years old and well-nourished. She had undergone breast augmentation surgery about a month prior. There was a tattoo under her right breast, which could help with identification. There was no sign of rigor mortis. She had been killed at least 48 hours earlier and hadn't been left at the scene. She had been taken to where she was found. The blow to the back of her neck wasn't fatal. It looked like she had been struck on the head with a small, hard object. Samples were taken from inside. One of her fingernails was broken. Tissue samples were taken from under the fingernail. They checked all the missing person reports, but none matched the victim's description in recent reports. All CCTV footage from the vicinity of the crime scene was reviewed. They began investigating all tattoo parlors in the area. One tattoo artist they visited gave them the address, saying the tattoo was only done at one place in the region. George and Jacob went to the tattoo parlor at the address and showed the tattoo artist a photo of the victim. The girl recognized her. She had come 3 months earlier. It was a custom-made Indian tattoo named Shiva. It was a tattoo of good fortune and blessings. The victim's name was Ella, but they didn't know anything else about her. She had said she was having problems with her boyfriend. After the tattoo was finished, they chatted briefly, and then she left. Finally, they learned her name. They also contacted Ella's doctor, who revealed she had undergone cosmetic surgery. Ella Smith was born in 1980. It hadn't even been a month since the surgery. She had a checkup this week. Her boyfriend was with her on the day of the surgery and he had paid for it. They obtained the victim's phone number and address from the surgeon. A search warrant was obtained from the prosecutor's office and they went to Ella's house. It was clear she hadn't been home for several days. The dishes were still there and the bread was moldy. They spoke to her neighbor who complained that they constantly played loud music and that people were constantly coming to the house. They had even called the police a few times. The building's security guard confirmed this, but he also liked the victim. He described her as a kind person, even giving her money occasionally when she was in a good mood. George and Jacob returned to the police station with all the information they had gathered. The woman was wealthy, had money, and led a lively nightlife. They contacted the victim's boyfriend, brought him to the police station, and took him to the interrogation room. John Wilson was 42 years old. They had last seen each other 3 days prior. They had a bit of an argument that day, and she had hung up the phone. He said they hadn't spoken since that day. He'd called yesterday, but her phone was off. Ella and John had been together for a year. They'd met at a friend's gathering, talked at length, and continued their relationship because they liked each other. Everything was wonderful, but John's father wouldn't accept the relationship. But John had turned his back on his whole family because he truly loved Ella and wanted to marry her. He proposed to Ella. He thought she would accept, but she refused. Ella said she didn't feel ready for marriage. Maybe she had someone else in her life. John actually had a feeling because her recent behavior had been quite strange. John wanted to talk to her many times, to resolve their problem and be like they used to be. They needed to go to John's friend Martin's place. They had made plans. Martin was John's childhood friend. They would get together with their other friends, eat, drink, and have fun. John had introduced Ella to all his friends. Actually, they all liked her. Ella even helped Martin with the decoration of his villa. She arranged for him to import things from abroad. Ella used to have a decorating company, but she closed it down when things went badly. Some of her friends would even ask Ella for help when they wanted to buy a gift for their girlfriends. 3 days ago, around 10:30 p.m., they went to Martin's villa. His friends noticed they were upset and tried to cheer them up, but Ella sat quietly. Martin asked Ella what wine she wanted. Ella asked for red wine. That day, John later decided to join in and have fun with his friends. They drank a lot, especially John. Ella was very upset by this and told him to stop drinking. They argued again. John was still very angry because she had rejected his marriage proposal. After a while, John saw Ella and Martin talking in a corner. Ella was shouting at Martin. John couldn't stand it and became even angrier that she was shouting at her friend. After arguing for a while, they left Martin's house. They continued arguing in the car. John kept yelling at Ella, saying she had humiliated him in front of everyone. Ella got out of the car angrily. John stood there for a while. After calming down, he called Martin. Martin said he was with Ella and had calmed her down. John waited a little longer and then returned home. That day, Martin tried to talk to Ella, but she was still angry. She gave him the taxi number and said he could stay as long as he wanted. And then Martin fell asleep.
The star of the last century was fingerprints, which were different even in identical twins. This century's is DNA, because fingerprints aren't found at every crime scene, and even if they are, they may not be suitable for comparison. However, it's possible to obtain DNA from even a single strand of hair or a dandruff flake. Moreover, it's possible to tell whether the owner is male or female. In the near future, we will even be able to draw a composite sketch of a person based on a small cut or a drop of saliva found at the crime scene.
Meanwhile, John's car was searched inch by inch. Inside, several of Ella's belongings and strands of hair were found, but there were no bloodstains. Ella's broken fingernails were not found in the car. The tire tracks taken from the crime scene did not match the tire tracks of John's car. Another friend of John's was interviewed. He also confirmed that John and Ella had argued. According to him, John was obsessively in love with her. And according to him, John had said that if Ella didn't marry him, he would either kill himself or Ella. This situation made the commissioner think, could John have killed Ella? The commissioner and his assistant went to Martin's house. Martin wasn't home. He had gone out of town and would be back in an hour or two. When Martin returned home, he began talking with the commissioner and his assistants. That day, they were celebrating because Ella had finished decorating the house. Everyone left around 4 a.m. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. It was Ella. She had walked all the way to Martin's house. Martin tried to talk to her, but she was too nervous to take her anger out on him. Besides Martin, the housemaid and the gardener were also in the house. But the gardener had gone to his father's house that afternoon.
The housemaid was interviewed. She said, A taxi had been waiting in front of her window that day. Taxi waited for about 10 minutes, and when no one came out, he honked the horn. The housemaid saw nothing else and then went to sleep. Meanwhile, the lab report arrived. Tissue samples taken from under Ella's fingernails belonged to a man. A sample was taken from the inside of John's cheek to compare the DNA profile. John had said he had scratched his cheek during the argument in the car. Hours after the murder, no conclusive evidence had been found. That is, until the doctor who performed Ella's cosmetic surgery contacted them. The doctor said that Ella had been paid twice for her cosmetic surgery and that she had received a refund for the first payment. After this information, the bank accounts of everyone who knew Ella were examined, and they found that Martin had paid the doctor for the surgery.
Compared to 20 to 30 years ago, we are now leaving behind evidence that we couldn't even imagine. Even when our cell phones are switched off, they know where we are. The moment we go online, they know where we are, at what time, and which site we accessed. The moment we use our credit card, they know where we are. While ordinary citizens complain about the lack of privacy, this information is crucial for solving a murder.
Jacob remembered that there was a note in the box they found at Martin's house. The note read, "Thank you for yesterday." And there was a picture of Ella's Shiva tattoo under her breast. Ella and Martin were actually lovers. Martin was immediately questioned. He was asked why he paid for Ella's surgery. Although Martin initially said he wanted to help his friend, after being questioned in detail about the notes and DNA samples found in his house, he was forced to confess the whole truth. John was having a lot of trouble because he was Martin's close friend. He wanted to remove Ella from his life, but each time he became more attached to her. He knew John loved her very much, but he also knew it wouldn't work out. John's affairs were also very complicated. Because of Ella, he had been deprived of his family inheritance. He couldn't even pay for her surgery. Later, when he heard that Ella had died, he was terrified of both his relationship being revealed and of being a murder suspect. Ella was a very lonely woman. Actually, they had spent a lot of time together, and Ella was clinging to Martin. That day, around 11 a.m., Ella came to Martin's house. She said she missed him very much and wanted to be with him always. She was going to tell him she was breaking up with John. That night, everyone was drunk. 10 minutes after John and Ella left the house, the doorbell rang, and Ella arrived. Martin was angry. He thought that Ella coming to his house while John was waiting for him in the car would ruin everything. Finally, Martin got tired of the arguments and went to bed. Martin admitted to his relationship with Ella, but insisted he hadn't killed her. The last sentence is unrelated to the preceding paragraph and appears to be a separate, unrelated statement. For the last 20 years, it's been possible to tell if someone is pregnant even from bloodstains. Ella's autopsy report mentioned the presence of a hormone called HCG. This level could rise for various reasons, but the doctor had considered all the findings. Ella was pregnant. John didn't know Ella was pregnant or that she had cheated on him. John wanted to start a family and have children, and he would never harm the family he dreamed of. The commissioner released him on the condition that he not leave the country. As John was leaving with the police, he asked to use the restroom. His eyes fell on a DNA report that a police officer had left aside. The report stated that Ella's pregnancy test results showed that John could not be the father, and that Martin was the father with a 99% probability. His world collapsed. George read the report in his hand, and when he saw that the samples taken from Ella's head wound matched the soil found in Martin's house, he immediately alerted the teams. They went to Martin's house. When they arrived at Martin's house, they were met with an unbelievable sight. John had killed the man who had impregnated the woman he loved, taking his revenge. John was arrested and sent to prison after being brought to court. Martin had become the sole suspect, but he had been killed by John before his statement could be taken again and his guilt proven. Chief Inspector George needed more evidence to prove that Martin was Ella's killer and close the case. The samples taken from Ella's head wound matched the soil sample found in Martin's house. This indicated that Ella had been killed there. Ella had never left the house. The taxi that was waiting that day had returned empty. They went back to the crime scene and examined everything in detail. The inspector glanced around. He noticed a door and went inside. As he went down the stairs, he found Ella's broken fingernail on one of the steps. He went a little further and reached the gardener's room. At the other end of the room was an old garage. Inside the garage, he found old furniture and old golf clubs. He remembered Ella being hit on the head with a hard, blunt object. A little further on, he saw the gardener packing his belongings. He went over to him and asked where he was going. The gardener said he had lost his job after Martin's death and couldn't stay there. He said he hadn't been there the night of the incident, but the commissioner didn't seem to believe him. The gardener's car was spotless. It was as if he was hiding something. The gardener was nervous. When George pressed the gardener a little, the gardener tried to run away. Understanding the situation, the commissioner caught the gardener and took him in for questioning. The gardener confessed everything. That night, he had actually gotten permission to go to his father's house, but had forgotten something and returned. He knew there was a party that night. He had parked his car in the back so no one would ask him for anything. Around 5 a.m., he saw Ella in the garden. Ella was angry. He went over to her. He admired Ella. His heart ached every time he saw her. He offered Ella a cigarette and stood beside her. The scent of her perfume intoxicated him. Ella said it was getting late and she wanted to leave. The gardener offered to give her a ride. Ella accepted. They went to the backyard. As they were going down the stairs, the gardener couldn't control himself and got very close to Ella. He wanted to hug her, to smell her. Ella felt uncomfortable and told him to stop. The gardener was losing control. Ella called out to Martin. Coming to his senses, the gardener suddenly didn't know what to do and quickly chased after Ella. He tried to stop her, but Ella didn't stop. She was screaming. He hit Ella with the golf club he had picked up. Ella fell into the ground. He panicked. Thinking no one had seen him, he quickly wrapped her in a plastic bag and put her in the back of his car. He took her to a wooded area and left her there. He also threw his bag and belongings into the sea. I didn't want her to die. I just wanted to touch her once, the gardener said. He was arrested and sent to prison for premeditated murder. This murder investigation, which began with an Indian tattoo and ended with a fingernail, once again proved how important details and science are in solving crimes.